All right, well, it's November 6th. Who's gotten out to vote today? Anybody? I don't see any voting stickers in the leaves.
I did absentee vote.
Absentee vote, awesome. How many people plan on getting out to vote sometime today? Awesome, that's a really good show of hands. Now, how many of you would consider yourself to be a well-informed voter? All right, yeah, a couple. Well, that's why I decided that this would be a relevant topic. Many of you are voting for the first time, or in fact, most of you are probably voting for the first time. And it can be both an exciting and a daunting experience. You're getting bombarded with information from all sides, and it's really hard to know what's reliable, what's a reliable source of information, what you can trust, and it's going to affect how you vote. So I know personally that when I was first eligible to vote back in 2004, I was kind of overwhelmed with that whole thing. It was a really tense election year between Gore and Bush. And I was so overwhelmed that I just got really disenchanted and didn't even end up voting that year. I didn't really feel like there was anybody I could get behind. There was just so much misinformation, and there was just smear campaigns from both sides. And so it was really disappointing because I had already been politically active for about 3 years, since 2001, when 9/11 happened. I had protested. I was writing my congress man or woman, I believe, at the time, and been signing petitions and trying to be really active to try to bring about some positive change. But it wasn't until 2008 that I found a candidate who I could really get behind, and I'm not going to mention who he was because it's really not that relevant, but I was so impressed with him that I decided to become one of the district campaign organizers here in Warrensburg. And his grassroots effort nationally was record-breaking. He was #1 in almost every internet poll. He was #1 among active duty service people. And for those of us who were involved, we were really excited. We felt like he was going to gain momentum and that there was potential for somebody with some real integrity to be in the White House. But that all kind of came crashing down. We realized the media wasn't going to give him very much attention and didn't give him very much attention because he wasn't serving their interests as a large corporation. And this was kind of depressing. We learned this the hard way that the news organizations are actually not required to present the news. They're not required to present the truth. They're not required to present facts. Really, they can present whatever they want, whatever serves their interests. That's what they get to present. And this is really kind of disheartening because this is where the average voter gets most of their information. They're watching the news, they're reading newspapers, and they're expecting a reliable source of information. But that's not necessarily what they're going to get, and that's what I want to explain. That's my first point that I want to get to, and I'm going to use this landmark case, WTVT-TV versus Jane Acker. In 1997, Jane Acker and Steve Wilson were fired from Fox News affiliate WTVT for refusing to report information that they knew was falsified. They knew that there were lies, and they just refused to report it, and so they were fired for it. And so in 2000, they sued WTVT, and Acker won a $420,000 settlement and gained whistleblower status. And it was a really big accomplishment for them at the time. But unfortunately, it was a short-lived victory because in 2003, WTVT appealed, and the ruling was overturned because the FCC, or the Federal Communications Commission, doesn't have any laws or rules that prohibits falsification of information. So essentially, what was ruled in this case was that the media can legally lie. They can legally lie because they're a corporation, and with the legal identity of corporate personhood, which gives them all the rights and privileges of an individual, they have First Amendment rights, and so they can say whatever they want. So if you want to know if a news outlet is reliable, I mean, really what you got to do is you have to check every single bit of information that they give to you, which, I mean, none of us really have time to do that. So how do we know where to get reliable information? Well, I would personally say you go straight to the source. You go to voting records, you go to historical records, you go to an unbiased opinion. It's not based upon the pundits and what they have to say. And what I found that I can get behind Well, actually, I'm not even to that point yet. I'm at the fairness doctrine right now. Does anybody know what the fairness doctrine is? Anybody ever heard of it? Okay, it was a policy of the FCC from 1949 to 1987. And essentially, its main function was to make sure that broadcasters were unbiased. They were not allowed to focus on one side of important stories, but they had to at least devote a little bit of time to both or all sides. That way, the viewers would get a fuller picture of what was really going on. And since its repeal, for those of you who watch the news, you may notice that a lot of news organizations are extremely biased, and they will promote candidates just very outright and really have no shame behind it. So between this, which was originally a check and balance to make sure that there was no bias in the media, and corporate personhood, which allows the media to lie, you're not really going to get a lot of reliable information necessarily from these organizations. This is what I found. Project VoteSmart. It's a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that essentially just compiles information and makes it easy for the average voter to understand. You can go to votesmart.org. And actually, I'm just going to give a little bit of a demonstration real quick. It's very user-friendly. There's no mouse pad over here. It's kind of hard to do this. There's two things that I want to focus on. First, I want to focus on ballot measures, because I feel like we're so obsessed with who we're going to vote for as president, or we're voting for candidates, that we forget that this is actually the candidates in action. This is legislation. These are laws that are being passed. And what I really like about this is it's very easy. You just say what state you're from. You can see different propositions, what date they're going to be voted on. Click on it, and my favorite part about it is you get this summary here, which essentially, this right here will tell you what a yes vote will mean, and down here tells you what a no vote will mean. And it's really easy, it's simple summary that pretty much anybody can understand. And you can also go and you can check their sources to make sure that it's not biased, which I feel like is really important. But my favorite part about votesmart.org is loading right here. It's the Vote Easy. It's coming up. Now this is really, really user-friendly. It's easy for anybody to use. Essentially, you have all of the presidential candidates, and I'm just going to go through kind of randomly, and you can just you pick things, how important they are to you, and by the end of it, you're basically going to have the person who, I get the bit around here right now, who lines up the most with what you believe. Now, when I did this, I didn't get Mitt Romney, I swear, but by the end of it, you have a pretty good understanding of who lines up with your beliefs, and you can click on it. You can find out about your candidate. You can find about the vice presidential candidate. You can look at their public records. You can look at their education, their professional experience, all of these things. It's very easy and concise. Now, on the flip side of this, let me get to where I was. Uninformed voters do actually have a negative impact. I mean, somebody who goes in and votes randomly, or votes down the party line, or votes for the cult of personality, or even studies show that people who are uninformed will oftentimes just vote for the more attractive candidate. There are actually negative consequences to that. And NYU PhD candidate Marco Plasmia did a research paper in 2011 that basically came to the conclusion, or one of the conclusions that it came to, was that uninformed voters will be more likely to vote for corrupt politicians than informed voters, essentially because they don't know any better, or they're getting a lot of misinformation, which is a bad thing. I mean, we don't want corrupt politicians. This is another study that's cited in his research paper. It says the failure of voters to acquire information about candidates may deter quality challengers from entering, while information acquisition may help deter low-quality challengers from entering. So what that's saying is essentially is the more that you're informed, the more that you're making informed voting decisions, it's likely that you're going to have better people to vote for. But if you're not informed, it's more likely that you're going to have a lot more corrupt politicians. moving their way into Washington. So to end this all, it's very easy. I just recommend going to votesmart.org. It's very user-friendly. Go through it, kind of get a handle on things. For those of you that haven't voted yet, it's not too late. If you have internet access, you have access to Vote Smart. So go equip yourself and vote smart. Thank you.